Okay. So today's plan is to show you how to be lazy like me. To sit around and play Rust on your controller. Like a lazy person. Get comfy, relax, do your thing, and let's get into it. So I'm going to assume that you've just downloaded Rust. You've just moved from console to PC like I did. You've maybe even done a year of trying to learn keyboard, got yourself one of these stupid things. Tartarus Pro. I mean, it was a beast, it was quite good, but it didn't last very long. It wasn't doing the trick. Well, I broke 2 in a year, maybe less. And one of the third one is partly working because the analog stick just gives up. It works, but it's not for long enough and not for the money, not worth it. Whereas I fished my old Xbox controller out and we managed to make something work. I don't really know how, but I do. But it's going to take a bit of explaining, so let's get into it. I would go for as many buttons as you can. I've got 4 under here. You probably want as many buttons as you can humanly get because that's the problem, isn't it? There's no support, there's not enough buttons. So first thing before anything though, install Rust. Come to GeForce Experience. If you haven't got it, get it, because you might not be able to play Rust on your console or on your computer, sorry. But you run GeForce Experience and now you can. It is that good. It really does make a huge difference. So follow some of the tutorials and bits and pieces online. Find your best FPS and your sort of best graphics for PvP and seeing people in the shadows, that sort of thing. But before you do any of it, start here. So just come into Rust, have a little look. It'll tell you what it's changing anyway. There's only 1 or 2 things I've already done mine anyway. And all I've done is turn off grass shadows and 1 or 2 other little bits, but I'll get into that. Hit optimize, let it do its thing. Close him down, and then into Steam. And you'll notice straight away, controller is not supported. Bam, 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 bam. Don't worry, it is. It lies a little bit. So you would normally come into either this little setting here, or you can go into big picture mode. So it's view, big picture mode, and then you can kind of use your controller straight away, and it does integrate better. So for example, you can press your home button and that will bring up the controller settings while you're in game. But it doesn't work for me, it crashes all the time. I personally find just using this, alt-tabbing in and out is much easier. So even though it says it's not, don't worry, click the little thing here. You're going to want to enable Steam input, and you might want to go onto this one here, properties, into your controller, and check that it is enabled Steam input. If you come to the Steam settings at the top left, into your Steam controller settings here, and depending on what control you've got, you might have some slightly different options, and effectively you don't need to enable Steam input here because that's for all games. You can do it just for Rust anyway, but you might want to add PlayStation support. In my case, Xbox extended features, definitely install that. Yeah, depending on what one you've got, you might have to try 1 or 2 things. If anything feels a bit weird, isn't working, it's probably just a case of changing something in here. And quite a lot of the time you can in fact just ignore all this and use your basic settings or your basic gamepad controller settings. So as long as it's actually picking up, you come in here. If you go online, you'll actually be able to get my Too Much Rust button layout anyway, or if you go to the link underneath in the video. But it's a good place to start, but it's best to know what you're actually doing, what you're looking at. But I'm not going to go right into this yet. We're first going to get into game, and we're going to add 1 or 2 things on that too first. Yeah. Straight on in, hit play game, have a look through your officials, communities, modded, all that. But let's be honest, hopefully you already either know what you're doing, or I would recommend starting with PvE, something like this. It's a little quiet, but it's a beautiful little server, and it's got a bit of everything. So you can do your builds, you can do your, practice your aim, tweak things without having to worry about getting killed too much. But you're also not just stuck in a room full of bots or targets, just shooting away and kind of, I don't know, that bores me too much to bother. So you load on in, you should see something like this, but probably, hopefully not with zombies or something attacking me. I don't have my headphones in, so I can't actually see what's going on right now. Oh god. Okay, so when it goes daytime, we'll get back to this in a second. You will load in looking like this, and you're going to want to be able to see a little bit better, like this. And soon enough we're actually going to connect it so that it automatically zooms you in and out of both. So when you zoom in, it doesn't just zoom in. See? Perfect. It'll help a lot with your aim, with everything. to be honest. So back in here, head bob off 100%, crosshair, I would turn this off, and I would actually go grab another crosshair, which I'll show you in 2 minutes. Hit cross, yes, keep that on. Hit flash, off. The flashes on the screen, they don't seem to help me. Same as with show blood here. It says controls whether blood or gore will appear during gameplay, but honestly, actually, it just blurs your screen up while you're dying so that you can't see anything, and you're panicking even more than you would have been while you're low health anyway. Nudity, all these bits and bobs, just however you fancy it, really. Gibs. This is effectively, I'll show you roughly in a moment, but when you're raiding, this wants to be actually less than 0, but we're going to set that and show you how to set that. And most of this will actually set as we go anyway. And then I think the important thing then is to go through your graphics. Most people turn all the experimental ones off, except for optimized loading. Definitely put that on. It'll load into your server one time a little bit slowly, but still a lot quicker than it would. And after that, much quicker. Image effects, again, most people turn almost all these off except sharpen. Graphics, you can decide how you want them. I do need to change this because I did do a reset, but I just play with a few of the shaders and the shadows and things. But I'm going to figure out which ones do what again, because most of the videos out there won't work quite right. They seem to be made for like GTX or RTX, or they don't match up with my specs perfectly, so I end up with these weird, terrible looking things. Yeah, the videos don't work for me, so I think best start with GeForce and then play with them one at a time, and when I figure them out, maybe I'll put a little video together, show you how it's done. Yeah, screen, if you've got it VSync on, why not? Resolution and all the usual, just make sure your resolution's as it should, as it matches your desktop, obviously. And I think that covers everything, except it is handy to know in keybinds here, we are going to be playing with the mouse sensitivity, aim sensitivity, but not yet, so there's no rush on that. I personally like to put on the do dismount speeds as well. So instead of just pressing A or pressing whichever button and accidentally jumping off your horse, your boat, whatever else, you've got a few seconds where you've got to actually hold it rather than just falling out your chopper in midair. And binds. The only thing to show you here for a second is this. So if, for example, you're looking to bind a key and you're not sure what delete or what the right hand number 6 on your numpad looks like or needs to be written down as, just use it. There we are, it's keypad 6. So if I wanted to bind something, that's what I'll use. That's how I'll check what it is. And there we are. Main options complete. And this is where, if you come from Rust console, this is the biggest game changer, and this is the main reason why we're able to actually play Rust on a control pad. The F1 console. Absolute magic. So as you can see, every time I pull my left trigger, I get the zoom in, because it's changing my FOV. And you do all this through the binds, and I've got them all for you, don't worry. So you don't have to worry about figuring them out. Although, honestly, if you're like me, you'll probably go a bit overboard and find some crazy new and interesting ways to do it. So first one is going to be for that. Always the same, bind, space, mouse 1 being my right click, attack 2 being the aim, hover loot, that's going to be very important. So effectively, when you're going through boxes, you're not going to drag and drop every single item. You can just right click on it. Graphics FOV changes. You get, I won't go too much into the format and the layout of these things, because you'll pick it up, and if you don't, to be honest, you don't need to. Just copy and paste mine. If you have questions, troubles, you'll either figure it out or you can ask. No problems. So first one of those, that's going to do this motion. Bum, bum, bum. So this one's a bit of a two kind of optional ones. This first one I would do every time because it gives you a little bit more image on your screen. See my AK in the back there? Graphics.fov scale. And what I will say with these as well, all of them, you can just start typing parts if you want. So you can start going graphics .vm, and it'll come up with the options. So you've got VM scale and VM horizontal flip. So the scale, I would say space false. See that? It gives me more screen to see. It's not blocking this area of the screen on the bottom right. And I think it looks much cleaner, especially with the zoomed out POV. And the other one, so the horizontal flip, switches them over. I personally think it would confuse my brain, but it could be nice, and especially if you're left-handed, it might make you feel a little bit more comfortable. Right then, pick a key, any key you like, and this one is going to be, I actually leave this on my keyboard rather than putting it on my mouse, but it's extremely useful. Bind P attack. So when I press P, effectively this happens. Obviously not the most useful thing. Until you click and attack again, it'll keep firing, and that works for your eco raiding and things like that. So you just tap the keyboard, sit back, relax even more. Go input, .auto, and you want to put that, mine's obviously true already, it'll show you there what it's on. And that effectively means that when you run into shelves, or you run into like, in fact, can we get one here? So for example, we jump in here, it automatically crouches me. So I'm not having to fart around with jump and crouch and, you know, mix and matching and getting it wrong and jumping through windows like this. Perfect. This is to craft items from your inventory. So bind 7, craft add, you've got to put these little quotations in, and you can get the item numbers from Rust Labs or pretty much anywhere really. Bind 7, craft.add, and you can add space and then a number, and it'll make, say, 3 of those, 4 of those, 5 of those at the same time. But this number is for bandage. So number 7, it's going to make me a bandage. Rather than having to go into my inventory, go to the side of the screen, which on a controller isn't the most useful thing, coming over to here, pressing your bandage. Instead, you just press whichever button you've got assigned to it, and it creates one for you. So they're exactly the same input, but this number is for making a TC out of wood. So if you go into Outpost like I do to buy your wood, just from a bit of stone, you can just spam whichever button you press. So I leave it on the keyboard again, this one, just spam number 8, make as many TCs as I need. So the first one you're going to enter, and you're going to hit enter, is the graphics FOV 60. Then you're going to do the same again with graphics FOV 90 on a different one. So similar to your right click now that zooms in and zooms out, you've got a button for each. And the reason this is so handy is while I'm roaming around, I need to get a better view on things, I can tap that, and it's actually assigned to the same button. So it's actually assigned to the same button, and I can zoom in and out rather than having to zoom in. Perfect. So on this one, it's bind O, or whichever key you choose. Client head lerp inertia and client head lerp 100 are the most important. The head bob false will actually just, you can do that from the settings menu now anyway, so you don't actually need to leave that bit in, but I do it anyway just in case I've accidentally switched it on or reinstalled or any sort of weirdness. And these two head lerp ones, which I'll show you what head lerp is in a second, you do need to actually keep those, activate them every time you play. You need to activate it every time you play, and I'll show you why now, because it is incredible. So with your head look, which is your head lerp apparently, so we're head lerping right now, having a look around. When you let go, it takes a little moment to come back. If you press O, look at that. Doesn't matter where I am, instantly back. Zero lag, zero messing around. So you're having a look over your shoulder, suddenly someone's in front of you, bam, you win. If you're finding a bit of lag, especially you get near someone's giant base, giant compound, and you're about to get screwed up for it basically, hit this. Don't worry too much about what each one is, but you're clearing different parts of the memory, resetting, and also doing that max gibbs, putting that to 0 if you haven't already done so. That'll mean there's less on the screen and less bits of wall exploding, doors falling off, things like that, for the computer to actually deal with and process. So you get all these little details down the bottom corner. When I hit delete, you'll see it does this little thing pops up, and that does a little clearance, and you'll often find you can get from sort of anything from 20 to another 30, 40 FPS. And the last but not the least, on those max gibbs, and I will do a little switcheroo, show you on screen what this does, but it can't be done in the menu. So you bind, pick a button, and effects.maxgibbs, and you're doing -1. So you're not just doing 0, which is the standard default, gives you the basics. This just, for example, when you blow a wall off, the wall is gone. So this is where the fun really starts. But I lied a little bit. We do just want to do one more thing. Search here for Crosshair V2. You can just search for it straight in here, or otherwise go to the Microsoft Store. I think it's, there we are, Microsoft Store, hit on that. Get onto your Crosshair V2. Choose whatever you like. You can go through, follow the F1, F4, press all the different bits and bobs until you're happy with one that works for you. That'll be dead center in your screen. F2 to get rid of it. And before we actually do Steam, we're going to do one last little setting. And this is going to make the world of difference. I couldn't believe it. It's literally changed it. I wouldn't have made this video if I hadn't figured out this last little bit. And I think it was Stoic. I'm really bad with names. I do apologise, but I'll do a little link because he does some good PvP tips as well. And you know, you can try them on the controller. Let me know how it goes. So in here, you want to write mouse. Go to your mouse settings. Bring this over. And you're going to look for additional mouse settings. It might be on the right in a little box if it's older. Otherwise, additional mouse settings there. The same box, no matter what you're using it on. And pointer options. And this enhanced pointer precision. I would have thought that's a good thing. It turns out it's not. It's not a good thing at all. What it actually means is that when you move the mouse quicker and you're in a bit of a struggle, it adapts and changes for that. No, you want it to be just as it is normal, just your mouse. It moves when it moves, especially when it comes to translating that onto this little button here. So make sure that is unticked. Press OK. Get rid of that. And for the first time again, we're going to jump back in here. Definitely, if you're on an Xbox One Elite control of some kind, use this layout. Or even, to be honest, I would say for any control, if you can port this layout in somehow and then kind of move it around, pick it up, go for it. Otherwise, follow the steps, and either way, follow the steps, have a little look through. So, edit layout. I would personally kind of ignore this home page, but it's handy for quick changes while you're in a game, but realistically, just hit edit layout, deal with everything one by one. I'm a bit strange. I think the most important thing on a shooting game, on any sort of game really, is not having to let go of your running around and your vision. So I'm going to start with what I've got on my back four, my little back four here, because that's the equivalent of what most people would probably use here. On my right hand side I've got jump. On my left hand side I've got crouch, which obviously is super important in Rust. Crouch, crouch, crouch. On a lot of games I might change that to sprint, but in this, crouch is the most important button, I think. On here, Alt key, so that's my head look, my head lerp, if we want to go for that. And none of these have got anything sort of special or extra on them, but you can add all sorts. So these are all on just regular press as they come. Number 3 though. So this is my button just under here. It's effectively sort of my use button, my open boxes, things like that. But I've actually bound mouse click 4, which is a random button on my mouse, to also do auto loop. Reason being then, when I press E, it also auto loops. So I don't have to worry about drag and dropping. I just click if I want to move from one box to another. But I'll show you this in a moment. Also, reload. Just reload. It doesn't get in the way. None of these overact with each other. But effectively, what I'm doing every time I press that button is I'm pressing E, I'm pressing auto loop on my mouse, and I'm pressing reload all at the same time. So that's why you'll notice whenever I open a door in the game, I'm reloaded. But I find it very, 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 very rarely gets me in trouble. So that's the first and probably the most important, the magic button there. Your E, your auto loop, and your reload. And then I've dotted things a bit everywhere, so I've gone for my map on here. But what I've done with this one is if you come in here, instead of regular press, go to settings, and you've got toggle as an option. So I've slipped that on toggle, and then when I'm in game, and I press this, my map comes up. I don't have to hold it down, any of that rubbish. But what I haven't done is I haven't assigned zoom on here. I couldn't be bothered to figure it out. I just give it a little scroll wheel, and then normally in game I'll just come over here and tap this quickly if I want to know where I am, and just keep it out on full screen anyway. Bam, 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 bam. Perfect. It's my start menu. I did use this originally as escape, but now I just use escape on the keyboard. Reason being, that's actually a really handy, perfect place button that I can go bop, bop, and then number 7, if you remember, that makes me a bandage. If I need a bandage, bam, I press that, and then it's going to pop up on my 1 to 6 somewhere at the bottom. The other thing it does is my X key. Only reason being, if I'm in a boat or I'm in a plane or something, I need to change seats. I don't mind making a bandage and changing seat at the same time, but I found that was one that it needed to be somewhere, and again, it doesn't overlap or react with that one in a bad way. Tab key. I've gone for the bumper tab key. A lot of people use their bumpers for lots of things, and it's a well-placed button, so you might not want to yourself. I don't, it seems to work well for me here. So just all that does in my game is just opens my inventory. Oop, there it is. It says flashlight here. It's actually not. I don't know why it says these. I'm guessing these are kind of what people would normally use them. Like that would normally be jump. That would normally be use. Ignore the titles. It's whatever you want it to be. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are pretty much the only keys left, along with, yes, the flashlight and emoticons, because it's got to be done. So what I've done is I've actually dotted these around. just kind of where worked for me, and also in the remaining spaces. Right bumper, I would 100% put as your number 1, slot 1, and always, if you can, keep your weapon in there. Simple fact being, when you're in trouble, you're doing bits and bobs, your right trigger and your thing is ba-boom. You're in. Doesn't matter what's going on, just ba-boom. It makes sense. I personally then went around the keys, so literally just 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I didn't obviously have space for the last one, so if I move out to my D-pad, you'll find that all I've got on here is down for 6, so I know my very last one there is down a D-pad, which is like the unusual one, the least likely I'm going to use, so I put stuff like a jackhammer on there if I'm farming, things that it doesn't matter if I let go of my movement stick for a second. Left, I've used for my torch, and then right, this little bit of utility. This is what I mentioned earlier on. The reason there's 2 on this right hand one is because they are my bracket and my quote, which, if we remember correctly, are zoom. And what it does is it cycles through 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, and you've done that. Again, put the first one in, and then you just go in, add command, or add extra command, and the extra command is simply just adding in that one. But what you're doing on it is you go into go into settings, and not toggle, you're doing cycle. So it cycles the commands. It just cycles from quote to back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Perfect. On this one, the B key is my emoticons, and then I've used the move cursor. So with this, do the add command, and move cursor is one of these options on here. So you've got a mouse, move to position, and then I carefully placed it right on the very center of my dot and clicked. So if I go move position, you've got here X and Y, you can type it in, or you can manually select, press start, and then when you click, that'll do it. And the reason for that is that then when you come in here and you decide you want to say hello, you tap up on your D-pad and it auto centers the mouse here. If you're running around like a loony doing things, it's surprising you press that and then it's over here already, and you've got to try and figure out how to get back. It doesn't work. It's the same with building. It is a pain. Yeah, so that's D-pad covered, and we want to go on to triggers. So I personally use soft pull on both. I'd rather them be as sort of sensitive as possible. Soft pull, left mouse, as you'd expect, it fires at people. That's all it does. Simple. You might find if building, you have the same problem as I just explained with the emotions, with the emoticons. If you have that same issue, do the same thing here. Add an extra command, mouse, move to position, and get it to center as well, and then that'll fix the problem. So joystick, obviously this is where it's going to be kind of down to choice really, and you're going to want to do a bit of back and forth in and out of the game. What I've gone for the V for my voice. So while I'm running around, while I'm still looking at someone, I can, instead of shooting them, I can talk to them. Click it in, hold it in. You could toggle it if you like, but I personally find that would freak me out. I'd accidentally leave it on for hours. Yeah, so yeah, leave this one as directional, and then as you can imagine, WASD, it'll probably be already set for you anyway. Normally that would be sprint for people. What I've got here instead is auto run, which I didn't actually show you. That's silly, isn't it? So auto walk is in here, in your controls, auto walk, and just click on that, put whichever one you want into it, and I've put that there, and I've also popped the shift key, so that's my sprint key. So the reason being, if I'm riding around a horse, I can just hold that key in again and it'll work as the sprint, and again, neither of those upset each other, it works fine. There is one other thing you might find, which I can't remember which exact ones it was, but I know there's 1 or 2 overlays, like there's a Steam overlay and there's an Xbox overlay and all sorts. If you find that while you're doing certain functions in the game, those pop up, just go into the app in question and you can change the bind, so change the bind on their side to something slightly different, because it worked out a lot easier than trying to remap the control to make up for it. So with the right stick, the joystick mouse up here, it's going to start, I think, as directional pad or something else, but it won't work. It just won't work. It just won't do anything, or if it does something, it'll be really weird and wonky. Definitely joystick mouse. Into settings here, and then after changing the Microsoft settings, you don't need to touch any of this anymore. Vertical scale, I would 100% change. It's the only thing I would change on here. Keep it at 100 on horizontal, but you don't really want to be looking up into the sky quite so quick. You'll find most console games are the same up and down isn't quite as brutal as offensive. I found about 70 is right, but tweak that for you, make it how work, make it what works for you. Maybe run around, fly a bit if you can fly. Dead zones if you've got any problems with your character running or consistently turning around like this, or some sort of strangeness. But otherwise, again, I didn't have to touch any of this after changing the Microsoft, apart from I dropped down the vertical scale a bit and I changed it to extra wide after trying them all. Perfect. In theory, I believe we has covered everything. But the question is, does it work? Does it work? But just for example, I'm running around with my control now, just doo-doo-doo, and it does a bit of everything. So say the aiming's good. I do actually have a wipe coming up on this server, as well as this base build. So if you want to see what the building is like, the next video out is going to be this base being built on this control pad. So you can see how you feel with that, if it looks like it's usable, doable. We're also then going to use the base for what it's made for in that video, and that's for destroying helicopters and destroying them in a surprisingly easy way, and for a very, very cheap and usable cost for pretty much any team size if you're dropping one of these around the base. But we'll come back to that. Thank you for watching my videos, liking my videos, commenting, subscribing, all that crazy stuff. I learned this year I am one, and now I get to have some. Thanks. You find it useful, it does awesome things for you, you turn into a control pad pro. Give me a like, give me a comment, gimme. Come be my sub. Thank you.